Hello and welcome to the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation CISM Live Series, where we connect with critical incident stress management subject matter experts live on YouTube. My name is Kelly and I'm your host for the CISM Live Series. If you enjoy the content being shared today, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe to ICISF's YouTube channel to be notified the next time we go live. We're not live today as we were experiencing technical difficulties. So we did record this for your viewing pleasure. My guest speakers today are Lieutenant Stephen Thomas and Jennifer Corbin. Lieutenant Thomas has a BA from UMBC and a master's from the University of Baltimore. He started as a patrolman with the Anne Arundel County Police in 1996, where he remained in patrol until he became the CIT and Peer Support Coordinator in 2016. He is the Anne Arundel County CISM Team Coordinator. Further, he is an ICISF approved instructor, and in the spring of 2019, he received the ICISF Pioneering Spirt Award. Jennifer Corbin, LMSW, is Director of the Anne Arundel County's Crisis Response System. Much of her work is in collaborating with outside agencies to work with the crisis system, such as Anne Arundel County Police and Fire, Health Department, public schools, local hospitals, and local providers. She is a trained instructor in the mental health first aid and is also trained in critical incident stress management and helped develop a peer support team for Anne Arundel County Police. Welcome, Lieutenant Steve and Jennifer.
Thank you.
So today we'll be getting a special World Congress 16 presentation preview of your presentation, utilizing CISM as a community policing model. Can you tell us a little bit about that overall?
Sure. So we employ the principles, the procedures of CISM, as well as utilize the training to help people. It's developing a new mindset in the police department of looking for the root cause of an issue that's leading to behavior and addressing it that way. So that's where we utilize the procedures and the training to try to do that. It's utilizing a behavioral health response in lieu of the traditional criminal justice response to be helpful to people, not hurtful.
Okay, so then why should law enforcement change their current status quo when it comes to that?
So I think it's two-part. First is the community wants a change. They want us to be helpful to the community and not hurtful with the behavioral health response. Plus, I think the behavioral health response is more efficient and more effective. When someone's in crisis, it's listening to them, determining why they're in crisis and how can we help them with that crisis, and look not just the short term, but the long term.
Okay, so then, the community obviously needs some type of change. So is there a need for CISM within the general community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we're looking at responses and what we're doing, we need to look at how we're approaching every situation and make sure we're there meeting their need and listening to why we're first out there, instead of going in to fix the problem, listening first and then processing through that and making sure that they're getting their needs met. I think a lot of times where we're getting stuck is we're going out to calls for service or going out to the community to fix something. And that's not where we need to be. We need to be supportive. We need to stabilize. We need to help people along that continuum that they need.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you guys often come across individuals that have a trauma responsive mindset. Within law enforcement, can you kind of explain what that is?
So I think traditionally, police have looked at situations in a negative way and looked at individuals and said, what is wrong with you? And then utilized the criminal justice system, as Jen said, try to fix them, which doesn't work. It's really looking at and talking to the person and asking the question in a different way of what have you experienced, or what are you experienced? What is your lifelong experience you've had, and how can we be helpful to help that person with what they're going through.
And a lot of times I think what we need to look at, and we talk about this a lot when we're talking with our officers, is using the approach that when we arrive somewhere, someone is asking for help, that we explain to them that there's other people who care. Why are we there that day? You know, is it that a neighbor called or a family member called? And start off with the positive that someone cared enough today to call, or someone wants to help you, you know, getting past going in and just doing that call for service, but explaining and laying some foundation to settle the situation down up front, so that the person who may have some trauma can feel that they're safe enough to go into why they need help.
Yeah, and to add to that, we know from statistically, most people that are in the criminal justice system have been exposed to trauma. They've survived trauma. So a lot of times the traditional police response adds to that trauma and is not helpful. It actually further hurts the person. So when we go in utilizing the principles and procedures of CISM, we'll become helpful to them. We gain their confidence, and we see the success every day with what we do.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that it's so successful, at least in your daily lives, because you guys do interact with so many, not only law enforcement individuals, but also individuals within the community as well. So what is an example of a CISM de-escalation method that law enforcement might be able to include in their response to the community?
I think anytime you respond to someone in crisis, it could be someone with substance abuse, it could be someone homeless with mental health issues. It's really listening to them, using the procedures, the teachings that we teach at ICISF, the active listening, recognizing their emotion, taking our time with them, listen to their story, and then how can we help them? And that will de-escalate situations, and then link them to the appropriate resources that are in the community that'll be helpful for them.
I think sometimes we need to remember the why of why we're on the call and kind of what we're there for, and making sure that we're helping them and not changing the track of the call, and remembering why you're there and not making the call something different that it's not. A lot of times that's where we tend to see things go wrong. What the initial call might start out as might not be where it finishes. And so really understanding the why and the theme, what is going on in this call for service that the person you're there for needs. It might start out as a well-being check, and it might turn into a linkage to resources. We don't want to just go into a well check and clear that call. Let's have a conversation. Let's find out what is needed, why someone called in, and what that person needs.
Gotcha. So what are some other tips then that you would recommend for law enforcement officers and agencies when responding to a critical incident within the community?
I think you have to, a couple of things. First, you have to have an open mind of recognizing who is affected and looking at it, that absolutely the first responders on the scene are going to be affected. But then looking at the person that's, whatever that incident is, the family that's affected, and the community as a whole. And then being creative in interventions and being creative of doing, how can we help that person or that family or that community, and really thinking outside of the box.
I think for me, the biggest thing on these calls for when we come is remembering it's what they see as traumatic, or the things that they're dealing with, because we need to remember, and I tell officers this all the time, remember, you're used to certain situations, you see them on a daily basis. The person you're responding to, this may be new to them, something they've never seen, something they've never dealt with. So we need to make sure that we're compassionate and caring about those feelings that the person's having, and not get kind of lost in our own feelings of, why are they so upset? Why are they so emotional over this situation? It's not a big deal, when to them it is. And we need to make sure as responders that we're sensitive to that. And that's where I created the peer support in the back end, is that after these calls that we go in the next day, or even after the call, and debrief with the officers, even if it is something that they don't feel hit them really hard. What they don't realize is how those constant calls for the same thing do wear on them. And so that's where I feel like our peer support and our debriefing and kind of processing with them, and not just with officers, but with my clinicians who are paired with the officers. We all need to do that, even clinical support. So it's just making sure that we're all processing those calls afterwards.
I think that's very important for everyone to do that's responding or after they experience a critical incident. So what additional information can viewers expect from your upcoming World Congress 16 presentation later this month?
I think the key, one of the things is recognizing that the safer R model, that you have to use it for the circumstances there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about how it can be applied to when you divert someone away from the criminal justice system to the behavioral health system. How do you help that person with reentry? They may have been incarcerated, but how do you help them back into the community? And the safer R model can be used there just the same way. The trauma that children face with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, how can the safer R model be used again to help them? The same as any traumatic incident within the community, that when you create a strategic crisis action plan of helping everyone and you have that plan,
Mm-hmm.
how the interventions can be used to help the entire community, first responders, and again, the families that are affected and the community as a whole.
I think the one thing in our presentation that's interesting is, Steve and I talk about it, is a lot of it seems repetitive because we give different examples, but we need to make sure we're opening our minds and that we're understanding that this model and safer R can be used in so many different ways, in so many different calls, and getting officers to think about that en route. When we do a lot of our crisis intervention training, I talk to the officer about, okay, that call came in through dispatch. While you're driving, what are you thinking about? How are you going to approach it? How are you, have you been there before? Do you know the person? Is there a different way to do these steps? So though it's repetitive, because we want to make sure people realize they can use it in so many different ways and so many different calls for service.
Mm. Yeah, that's important, especially in the moment. You don't really think about those things, but then after the fact, it's always good to get them on the beforehand, for sure, so to get them thinking about it. So that's super important. Well, even though we're not live today, I really do appreciate you both coming on to speak with us a little bit about your upcoming World Congress 16 topic. I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to learning more about community policing and how CISM plays a role in that. So for all of our viewers, the ICISF World Congress 16 Wellness Amid Uncertainty is from May 25th through the 27th of 2021. You can join our ICISF community from around the world at ICISF's Virtual World Congress. This real-time live event features 3 days of content, connections, and community that you do not want to miss. We still have 5 more days to register at the early bird registration rates. You can learn more about Lieutenant Steve and Jennifer's World Congress 16 presentation and view other presentations by visiting our website at icisfworldcongress.org. We look forward to seeing you all there. I'd like to thank again Lieutenant Steve Thomas and Jennifer Corbin, who joined us today for our CISM Live Series, where we connect with critical incident stress management subject matter experts live on YouTube. You can join us next week on Wednesday, May 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we speak with Ali Barber and Charlotte Copeland to learn more about the Safe Haven CISM response to the recent Beirut explosion in a special World Congress 16 presentation preview. If you've enjoyed the content today, please be sure to give this video a like and be sure to subscribe to ICISF's YouTube channel so you don't miss out the next time we go live. We'll see you next time.